Do you normally go through that process where you sort of, it sort of goes in levels where first you think that the level of aggressiveness with the cutting is here and then graduates to here and then it graduates to here?
It happens that all the time, I think, to some extent. It's like, you see the initial things that you can pull out. Then the problem you always run into on almost every movie is, you got to get to the event. As it was in that movie, you got to get to the car accident. You got to get to the beginning of the second act. You can't spend too much time. So then it's how do we get the beginning of the movie shorter?
The first cut, the first cut, the first cut.
I'll just teach you simple cuts to start with.
Welcome back to Craft Truck. In the cut, Doug Crise, picture editor.
Hi.
Hi.
I started working with Stephen Marioni,
right.
and who's fabulous and
right.
very good, and I worked with him for 10 years. And when we were working,
what was it? The bigger credits under him, I think the Oceans, right?
The Oceans, the Traffic, Good Night, Good Luck, all those 21 Grams.
Can I ask you a question about Good Night and Good Luck?
Yeah, go ahead.
End of the movie. I saw it once in the theater.
Okay.
But I never forgot this because I was starting to pay attention to filmmaking, right? End of the movie, it's like Clooney and David Strathairn have a meeting with Frank Langella.
Right.
I think, and then they get up and they leave, and the camera pans over as they're walking across the frame, and it rests on Eisenhower giving this speech.
Right.
And then it goes back to the beginning. It matches back to the beginning, which was an intro from Strathairn at a public event. And he says, and then it says good night and good luck, and the movie's over, right?
Right.
Was it supposed to end on Eisenhower, and then you put those in as bookends afterwards?
No, I believe it was always supposed to be a bookend.
Oh, really?
That's how it was planned.
Because I just thought that was the perfect ending of the movie. Like sort of like this social commentary about how things have changed.
Right. No, it was always the plan.
I think I even bet someone that's how it was.
It's one of those movies.
I
I probably only saw it a few times because I didn't work on the whole movie. It was one of these another deals is how we talk about cutting is that movie. I started that movie and I worked through the whole way through dailies and did some cutting on it, but then Babel was starting, and I went off and started Babel.
And who were you assisting for? Cut Babel.
Yeah, I cut Babel. Right. So I got to cut Babel with Marioni, and but you see, because I started off cutting Babel while Steven finished Good Night, Good Luck. So at
that point you're kind of like a team.
Yeah, so it wasn't like I didn't get to stick around for the whole end. So I didn't see I didn't work on Good Night, Good Luck because they went off to Italy and everything, and cut it there at George's house. So I got to miss out on the Italy part, but I got to cut Babel.
You didn't get invited to George's house.
No, I would have been invited if I'd worked on the film during that period, but I only worked on it during the shoot when they were shooting in.
Didn't that suck a little bit though?
It did, just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Because they had a really good time. I mean, George has a really nice
supposed to be
house.
Pretty posh.
With
there's like a lake or something like that.
And it had nice dinners and lunches.
He's got like chefs coming in and stuff like that. Yeah. What's the challenge about cutting a movie where it's three loosely connected, not loosely, but the intersecting points of the three stories? There's Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett in the desert.
Yeah.
Then it's their kids, and then it's I believe the Japanese
story. I don't think there's anything particularly more difficult in that aspect because of the way that the movie is scripted to be intercut between the stories, and it's all a matter of cutting it together. I mean, the challenge initially for me is it's not my language. I don't speak Spanish, and I don't speak Japanese or Arabic or Farsi, and I don't speak any of those languages. So it's a matter of trying to figure out how to cut it. And the way I work is like for the part that took place in Morocco, I'd lay it down, I'd look at the script, see what they're supposed to say, and I'd put subtitles on top of it, like a master shot, and then I'd have to go and start cutting the coverage in and figure out if I'm understanding what they're saying. So it's a matter of putting it together initially. But what we did at the end is we brought in translators to make sure we weren't chopping words off, we weren't that we had good translations, and we used the translators to help us work out the subtitles for the end. But even with that being said, we sometimes would change what the subtitle says to be what we want it to say, rather than what they actually saying. So
to a reasonable poetic license degree, or to a
poetic
they're
license
talking
mostly,
about,
but it's or finding a shorter way of saying it.
right,
That's not so you don't have as much stuff to read.
right.
But here's a story I'll tell you. The translator brought her in, and I was sitting with her watching the part Morocco, and you get jaded working on movies. You work on them, and you know what's going to happen, and it doesn't affect you, and you don't feel anything to some extent.
Walter Murch calls this not seeing beyond the edges of the frame, right?
Yeah, basically.
You're just cutting what you get.
Yeah, so there's the part I'm translating, and the little boy gets shot, toward the end of the film, and she's like, oh, and I said, but what did they say there? What did they say? Was that right? And I run it back, and I show it to her again, and she goes, oh, and I go, okay, but I need the translation, and I run it back again, and she, oh, and then finally I said to her, I said, okay, he's gonna get shot again, all right? It's which is totally heartless on me, because
you're a prick.
I know.
Yeah, but a lovable one.
I know, but I felt bad, and now I feel,
You didn't want to say, actually, he's not really getting shot.
No, he's gonna get shot again when I run this one more time, so you can listen to the translation. So, but
that is a great editing room story.
Yeah.
So, what was the first film you cut without Stephen? Were you?
It was The Nines.
The Nines
with John August. Yeah.
Right, and this is a kind of a bizarre indie. Mm-hmm. Multiple personalities of the main character, played by Ryan Reynolds.
Right.
What was your experience of cutting that?
Well, it was a good experience. I like John a lot. I actually met John on Go. He was the writer of Go.
Right.
And while I was on it, he had me edit a short for him called God, starring Melissa McCarthy, and so it was sort of the prequel to The Nines. So when he was doing The Nines, he called up and asked me to do it. And it was a very easy-going experience. I mean, John, what I like working about with John and a lot of fellas like him who write their own stuff is I find it really easy, because a writer never runs out of ideas on how to rewrite the movie. So it's the same thing. What we found out with that movie was he had piled up too much of the explanation into the third act. That it was letting too much in, trying to tell everybody, okay, now this is what's really going on, and it was all in the third act. So he came up with the idea to put what they call an interstitial part that happened between part 2 and part 3, where you see this, and it goes into this very narrow framing where it's split screens, and it reminds you from something from part 1, and it's told in the middle. And that was just so. Let's reveal a little bit of what's going on so that the audience isn't completely lost, and then that way we're not, at the end, we're going, okay, here's the whole what really happened part, So he thought it worked better that way. So and I like that, working with guys who write their stuff. They always have a good idea on how to make it better. I don't really find the cliche of a writer not letting go of his material being true at all.
Mr. Soderbergh,
Yeah.
I'm only assuming because he is so technically apt, and he did make a version of Solaris that was 92 minutes.
Right.
Pretty brutal, like pretty able to just walk in and go, no, we can drop this, we can drop this, we can drop this.
Well, he